Well, welcome to Talkin Hoops. This is episode number 2, and Kyle Nendrup here. My first guest today, John Ashworth, who is a high school basketball coach, or was a coach, and probably will be again. I don't know. Maybe at some point. I'm not sure, but we're going to get into a little bit on what John's up to now, and in an interesting social media post he put out, or a series of posts on what would happen if we seeded this high school basketball tournament, which I thought was really interesting. And that's, I wanted to get into that as well. But, first off, John, thanks for joining me here. And, you've been in coaching, you're from a coaching background. You're not coaching this year, but I first want to ask you kind of what you're up to now, because you're putting out a newsletter that I found really fun to read, and some of the parent complaints too at the end of them, where you get submissions. But tell us about that newsletter a little bit and what you're doing with that.
Yeah. Towards the end of last year, was really thinking about what I wanted to do. Did I want to stay in education, stay in coaching? And one of my really rich friends convinced me to start a business with him. Although I love, the teacher paycheck I was getting every month, he was able to convince me. So, we started a business centered around automation and AI, and that will kind of, segue into what I built with the seeded tournament. In the meantime, Todd Howard, who was at Marion, he asked me to help out with them and do some analytics, do some film, and kind of be like, an assistant coach here and there. And so when all that, stuff went down at the end of the season, he stepped up. So I kind of got a fast bump up, that's for sure, and was helping him towards the end of the season at Marion. So kind of learned in that way as well. And then now, to stay around the game, I've started a coach's newsletter. It's called Game Shots. It's completely free. It drops every Wednesday morning. And what I love about it is just the kind of trying to build a community of coaches. So I'm sharing, basketball, plays. I'm sharing basketball insights, things that we're seeing at the college level. But it's also, a good chance for me to kind of explain my story, talk about my experiences. And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to provide value for coaches. I think about myself. I got hired at Decatur Central. I was 25 years old, and I didn't know anything about being a head coach. And so I really think about that when I'm writing about, like, what did my 25-year-old self need? What would be good advice for a young coach? So a lot of the coaching, stories or things that I'm writing are insights for young coaches, but it's not just for basketball coaches. I really do think it applies across the board. There's funny things in there. I try to be entertaining. Like you said, we have like a crazy parent of the week. Those are messages, emails, videos, just to, coaching is one of those things where it's a lonely profession sometimes. And so to have a community and to have people that are like-minded and seeing the same things as you, I think is powerful. And some of the feedback's been really good. We're close to 400 subscribers, and it's been really, really fun to write each week. And like I said, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to provide value to coaches.
Do you know, John, are most of those subscribers coaches, or do you get people from other parts of life as well?
I think it's all walks of life. I mean, I've had football coaches message me and say, hey, read the newsletter this week, loved it. I've had volleyball coaches. So I've really had a mixed bag of different types of coaches. I think it applies really across the board. I've had administrators read it. I think it's really good for, athletic directors, principals, people like that to read it, because it does give some insights into, what coaches are dealing with. So I've had, a mixed bag of feedback, but it's been very, very positive so far.
Well, as you mentioned, you get into coaching as a head coach at a young age at Decatur Central, but you obviously had a history in basketball before that, and your dad a coach as well growing up, and I know you kind of ended up following in his footsteps. But when did coaching become something maybe that you thought, was it something growing up that you thought you might get into, or not?
Actually, not at all. It's funny, like, you always kind of follow in the footsteps of your parents in some way. My mom was a doctor, my dad was a teacher and coach, like kind of two opposite sides of the spectrum. And so I initially went through college really thinking I wanted to go into medical school or the medical route. And it was funny, my senior year, I did an internship or a job shadowing, and I hated it. I figured out within like 2 weeks, like, I hate this. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And so while I was doing that, I got to give a lot of credit to John Rocky, who was the head coach at Franklin Central at the time. I saw him at like I don't know, it was like a party or something, a 4th of July party or something. And he just said, hey, we need a young coach. We need somebody to come out and just, work with our kids, do some individual, training and that kind of stuff. So I went back and helped Franklin Central during the summer and fell in love with it. Absolutely loved it. Loved, helping the kids. So my first year at Franklin Central, I was actually just a volunteer coach. I didn't get paid. I just did it because I really wanted to, and really went through kind of the traditional, paying your dues, as they say. Like the next year, I kind of got lucky. The freshman coach left for a different job. So Coach Rocky was like, hey, do you want to be the freshman coach? Yeah, sure. So got to be the freshman coach. Then, the JV coach left. Hey, do you want to be the JV coach? And I just kind of kept my head down and kept working. And at the time, we were having a lot of success at Franklin Central. So, that led me to, get the opportunity to be the head coach at Decatur Central and then move on to Hamilton Southeastern. So a lot of good experiences when I was younger really shaped my coaching career and really helped me. But yeah, I didn't get into coaching like thinking as a young person, like I want to coach. It just kind of naturally developed into that.
One of the cool things is you got to actually coach with your dad, but we wanted to ask you too, like who kind of influenced you, I guess, or who were some of the major influences on you in your coaching?
I mean, I definitely think I was blessed with great coaches growing up. Not just my dad. My dad was a super hard coach, was hard on me. So that kind of prepared me. But I really think at all levels, I had great coaches. I had Ray Schultz as a freshman football coach. And
wow.
For those of you that don't know Ray Schultz, legendary high school football coach at Manual and then started the Lutheran program and built them up. He was my freshman football coach. Like, you don't get freshman football coaches like that that knowledge base. And he was just such a great influence on me in terms of just how he coached, how he approached it, just the discipline and the lessons. He was really big on that. Then I played for Mark James. I mean, you don't get a better high school basketball coach than Mark James. The preparation, the attention to detail, just you learn how to be professional and how to handle yourself. Then I got to play for Ron Hunter, who was, a different side of the spectrum. He was super hard on me and really held me accountable, but gave me a lot of responsibility as a player. So, he's doing well at Tulane. So I've had a really, really kind of great influences on me at a young age. And then, last one is I got to give credit to John Rocky. When I was a young assistant, he was polar opposites of Mark James. Mark James was like, you're going to do it this way. And Coach Rocky had kind of more of a baseball background, kind of a baseball manager mentality. And so he gave me a lot of responsibility. He trusted me. He let me do a lot of things as a young coach that a lot of head coaches probably won't let, a 24, 25-year-old young assistant do. And I think that really helped me grow into a better coach.
Yeah, I think John Rocky's one of those guys that probably doesn't get enough credit for just being not only a head coach, but man, he's been a great assistant at various places. I know, the coaches who he's coached under really, brag on him and the work that he does as a coach. So definitely deserving of mention. John, you coached at still a pretty young age. Obviously, you've coached at some bigger schools. When you look back at your time at Decatur Central and Hamilton Southeastern, what do you is there anything you would have changed or done differently, or how do you look back at your time at those two schools?
It's funny when you look at your overall record, you're like, Decatur Central, like I knew going in, like that was going to be a rebuilding program. And, you look at the first 3 years versus the last 3 years, like it took some time. And I probably would have went back to my 25-year-old self and been like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, this is going to be a 6-year, rebuild kind of deal. So, but, then when you look back, you're like, those experiences really shaped me and helped me. It helped me grow into a better coach. It helped me learn how to run a program. And so I wouldn't really change anything. Like I love, my coaching experiences and what I've done. And then this year helping out with Marion and learning from that experience. It's like, it's all comes back to center. It all shapes, how you coach. And I've just had great experiences, long relationships. I'm still talking to like Brian Serber, who's the head coach at Decatur Central now, and he was an assistant under me. And so there's all those experiences, I think, just shape you. I've heard a lot of things like grow where you're planted is always like a famous saying, like, make the best out of your experiences. So yeah, there's nothing I would go back and necessarily change. But yeah, if I was really concerned with my overall record, I probably would have held off and stayed at Franklin Central for a few more years. But I wanted to be a head coach. So, Decatur Central was a great opportunity. They took a chance on me. I still, I'm very grateful for that, because I would not hire a 25-year-old. I wouldn't do that as an administrator. And they really took a chance on me and let me grow there and really supported me. So, yeah, I have a lot of positive memories from all my experiences.
As it looks now, do you think you'd ever get back into high school coaching?
I spent the spring. It was a big family decision. I did, not to get into the details, did get a few offers, the location, the money, all those factors, come into play when you have a family and two daughters like we have now. So I will never say never. I have two daughters. I coached my daughter's kindergarten and first grade team this year, which was an awesome change. So I won't rule out coaching on the girls' side as they grow older. If the right opportunity presents itself and a school would even want me, I would obviously listen. I'll never say never. I love coaching. It's in my blood. I am running a business now, so that it does change my day-to-day, job. But I know there's coaches that are lay coaches and still have success and things like that. But I'll never say never. I would love to stay around coaching in some capacity.
And before we get to the bracket, what would you tell people? What's maybe something people don't maybe know about coaching high school, or maybe something you learned along the way that's maybe not what you expected going into it?
The biggest thing is I don't think people realize that it's a full year-round, full-time job. It used to be, I'm thinking way back, maybe the 80s. You coach from November to March, and then it was done. You didn't see the kids. You really didn't do a whole lot in the off season. And I don't think people realize you are a full-time coach. You're
right.
Doing fall workouts, the season, spring workouts, June is probably more busy than the season for a lot of high school coaches. You have youth basketball, so if you're at a large school, like when I was at Hamilton Southeastern, the amount of just stuff off the court that you're doing as a head coach is immense. And I don't think a lot of people realize the amount of time you're putting in comparison to what the pay might be. I think we always joke as coaches, if you broke down your hourly rate, it's 2 cents on the dollar and things like that. So yeah, I would encourage people before they go complain to their high school coach is just really think about all the time and the energy that they're putting into the program.
Yeah, and it's there's just a lot of things I think too that that go into it that you have to delegate out, or things that just people don't even understand probably fully what goes into it. But let me ask you, where do you come down on seating? Before I put this up on the screen, are you a fan of seating of high school basketball tournament or not?
It's such a tough thing. And I want to preface this by saying, I'm not critiquing the current system. All right. There's no perfect system. It is a challenge. And I understand, the IHSA has such just a challenge and the logistics and all the things that go into it. I do think seeding makes for better later games, right? When you get to the regionals and the semi-state and the finals, seeding would probably make for better later round games. But again, the old school high school basketball coach in me loves the sectional, the rivalries, the, like, you know, when you're coaching in Noblesville's gym and there's 6,000 people, like, that's fun. Like, that's high school basketball. But then you see, like, Pike's got to play Plainfield on Tuesday. So one of the top 3 teams in the state on opening night is done. And I think, you know, like, so there's a delicate balance there. I love seeding. I think it would be a really cool feature to add to the tournament. Other states have done it. Other states have had success with it. But it is a challenge and it is a change. And sometimes people don't like change.
Yeah. And seeding is, you know, I'm kind of a proponent for football. Let's try it in football and then see what it looks like. And then, because I think you could do it in 5A and 6A and not totally take a sledgehammer to the way it's done. And I'm with you. I love sectional week. I always say though, like, I never lose. My season continues on, so I can't. You know, I'm not in the same boat as the coaches on that either. But I totally get it. You know, last year we had Westfield and Fishers play, and I think Westfield was ranked 3rd in the state. You know, and they're out on the first night. So you know, well, let's see what this looks like here. So you had the 4A bracket here. First round, you had the play-in games. You have, and then you had the 4, and I'll bring up the others here too. Let's see.
Yep. So I split it up by regions, you know, and what I did to try to make it as you know, impartial as possible is I just used Sagarin rankings. So the cool thing about, you know, AI, I'm using Claude to do this. This was just a fun experiment to see if it could do it. So you feed it, you know, fed Claude some Sagarin rankings, and it did all this in minutes. So that's like what's really cool and almost scary about AI is that, you know, it produced this, it produced the layout. I didn't tell it colors or anything like that. It just did it on its own. But it was really cool to look at what, you know, what the West region would look like, what the East region would look like. And then, you know, the play-in games, you know, people were criticizing me on Twitter about, you know, like, oh, Valpo's got to drive down to Evansville. And I'm like, okay, like, I didn't set this up, you know? So I appreciate everybody's passion. And if you did this, you probably would have to take into consideration travel. Like the play-in games, you probably would have to say, okay, Valpo can't drive down to Evansville for one game. You maybe could take like the top games and say like, all right, the North, you know, is above this line. The play-in games will be there south. So like limit travel would probably be something you would have to think about and add. But what I do like about the seeding is I think it rewards you for a good regular season, right? If you're Plainfield or Carmel, now you get to host. So there's a reward there. So like your little pocket, like Plainfield would host that little pocket of 4 teams and so on and so forth. So there's a little bit of a reward there. If you do have a good season, you know, you're not just like some random draw where you got to go now to, you know, we used to always have to play at Center Grove in high school. And I'm like, hey, I love Center Grove's gym, but, you know, we'd love to host or we'd like to go somewhere else. And you know, sometimes you're just like based on the gym size or where that is, you know, that can present some challenges. But I do like the idea of playing games. I try to treat it like the NCAA tournament. And this was all based on kind of rankings based on Sagarin. But you'd see some really cool matchups. You really would see some awesome matchups. You'd see some, you know, people would be looking ahead at their seeds and all that kind of stuff. And I think it would be really cool to see. And it would really get the state, you know, it wouldn't just be regional or sectional based. You know, it'd be the full state tournament. And anybody could play anybody.
So you think the idea here could be, say Pike, you know, ends up being the top seed in the West, then they would host that. I guess it would be a 5-team grouping because they'd play the winner of a play-in game.
Yep. So Pike would get to host. Now that would encourage Jeff Teague to take some of his money, build up on that gym, you know, because I know sometimes like the limitation is gym size. Right. And I know Pike's had issues with, you know, not being able to host because of gym size and that being such a popular sectional. So those are other factors, you know, that that people don't think about when you're building these things. But yeah, it'd be really cool. You know, Warren's playing Kokomo at 6 on Friday. Pike's playing the play-in winner, and then on Saturday, the winner of those games is playing at Pike, and then that's like the sectional. Then when you get to regional, that's where I'm a big believer. I think we should bring back colleges. I mean, my last high school game was played on Hinkle Fieldhouse. That's such a cool experience, and there's debate back and forth about that, but I would love to see the regional sites be a true neutral site, a college, or go play at the Pepsi Coliseum, or go play at a true neutral site where you could have large crowds.
Yeah, I agree. I loved. I remember covering. I guess it was Patrick Beatty and Casey Coons against LN at Hinkle.
Yeah, they beat LN in the regional championship. That would have been 09.
I think it was 09 or 09 or right around there. And beat that Lawrence North team. But yeah, we've lost a lot of the fun Hinkle daylight coming into the gym there, and it's just a great venue. I mean, I know there's issues with scheduling. I think that's what's kept that from happening. But yeah, I agree. That was fun. What are the big is when you look at this, and I know AI's just kind of comporting all this information and spitting it out, but is travel the biggest issue you see with a bracket like this?
That's where people have been commenting, like, you need a committee, because Sagarin's just data, right? So it doesn't tell the whole story. If you had a kid that was injured all year and now he's back, that might change somebody's seating, or travel, like New Albany's got to go up and play Crown Point, that's not a good, so there would need to be some human oversight, maybe a committee that would say, like, okay, the travel is the biggest factor. We can't have these teams going here. So you would have to factor that in. But again, I mean, what was the Jasper girls regional? LC was playing Center Grove at Jasper. Like, like teams are traveling for the regional and the semi-state. Like, I don't think it's that big of an issue. Like I said, I think it would reward teams for having great seasons. If you have a great season, now you get to host a sectional. You get to win your sectional on your home floor. I think teams would enjoy that, because it would be a true, maybe home advantage, similar to what you see in some other tournaments. I've even thought about, like, I know other states, they narrow down the field. They don't even have play-in games. They just say, hey, the top 64 teams make it. If you're not in the top 64, you don't make the tournament, and then you go from there. And I think, like, that's probably not traditional Indiana. You want the upset potential. You want to give every team a chance. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see, has there ever been a team 65 through 82 in 4A go on a run? Probably not. Right. But that would be kind of brutal to eliminate people. So if you do include all 82 teams, you would have to have some play-in games and treat it like the NCAA tournament, and have some some seeding and things like that.
Yeah, and I'm flashing up some of the brackets here that I pulled off of your post the other night, and it is interesting to look at it and just see what it would look like. And hey, I've offered the IHSA. I said, if you ever want to seed this, just let me know and I'll do it all for you. So the offer is the offer's out.
Me and you can be the committee. We'll set it up, and we'll make sure that we have a customer success team that takes all the complaints and all the calls and all the emails that we'd get. Because somebody was already complaining, like, Evansville North is a 5 seed. Like, I decided they were a 5 seed. I said, hey, this is Sagarin. And I almost said too, it almost would maybe encourage teams to get out and play a tougher schedule, right? Because 17-4, if you're only playing certain teams in your pocket of your region, it might be like college, where you have the what do they call it? Like, they break
like
it up.
RPI used to be.
Yeah, the RPI or the tier 1 victories and all that stuff they do now. Like, it might encourage a team like, I'm going to use Evansville North just because of whoever tweeted at me. It might encourage Evansville North to go up to Indianapolis and play a highly ranked team, or it might encourage Crown Point to get down and play some, which they are, but it might encourage some people to, really care about their Sagarin rankings and their strength of schedule and things like that. So I think seeding would be cool, and you'd see teams like Mad. Hey, we're a 5 seed. All right, let's go show everybody. Like, there would be some cool, additional like energy, I think, created when people would see their, their seeding or who they're matched up against and things like that. I think it would be like the NCAA tournament, really draw some energy there.
Yeah, I know when I post the IBCA, I try to post the IBCA poll every week, and the reaction I get sometimes from that is like, how can, there was a team, I can't remember, had one loss, and it's like, well, Northridge, and how can they be ranked below Pike? And I'm like, I didn't respond because I just didn't want to get an argument, but it's like, the Pike is, they have 3 losses, but I mean, have you seen Pike play? There's some of that too. And I'm looking at this bracket right here, the 3A one. You have Brebeuf, or not you, but the algorithm has Brebeuf number 1. And I think that would raise, but Brebeuf plays a great schedule. So, I can understand why they would be, but yeah, it would create some fun arguments. And you see Batesville here is 6th. That would create some arguments, I think, which would be fun. Batesville doesn't play the schedule Brebeuf does, which is part of the reason for that.
And I think that's where, like, using Sagarin rankings kind of takes away the bias a little bit, but you may need some human oversight to say, oh, like Batesville, I actually like their, their victories. I like, they went and played, a bigger school. They played a bunch of 4A schools. So like I said, I think it would encourage teams to really look at their schedule and look at who they play and their strength of schedule and things like that. One thing that I going back was, once I made the 4A bracket, then everybody was like, do a 3A bracket, do a 2A, and everybody wanted to see, where they were at. And it was kind of funny. And so I just did the same thing and plugged in, the 3A teams, plugged in the 2A teams. And then the challenge became 1A, because I think there's 122 schools, in the 1A. So I probably made some people mad, but I kind of had to make the executive decision to be like, hey, we have to cap this at 100 teams just for this to work. There's 100 teams in 2A, 100 teams in 3A. So the math works really well.
Right.
So 1A, then you're making some people mad because not everybody makes the tournament. So there are some challenges. Like I said, I'm not calling for a wholesale change, but I do think there's a lot of people, that would like to see a system like this. And like you said, maybe it's football. Maybe you try it in football, see what it looks like, see the challenges with travel and things like that. And then, see if the later games are better. Are we getting Center Grove versus, Ben Davis in the regional rather than like a sectional? I'm just using that as an example, but I think it would be good to test just because of the lower numbers in 5A and 6A in football. But I think a seeded tournament would be really, really cool to see in high school basketball. And like I said, I think at the end of the day, it would reward those teams that had really good regular seasons. So now, Pike, Plainfield, they're not playing on a Tuesday night first round. They really do have a chance to make a deep run and have a successful tournament.
And the thing with football too, it's only once a week, so you wouldn't have to, if you were traveling, it would only be one trip, and you might be done at that point, or at least it wouldn't be till the next week you would have to travel again. So it is a little bit easier, certainly in that respect as well. How closely have you been following high school basketball this year?
Really close. Obviously, staying close. Still very close with a lot of coaches. Watch a lot of the games. I'm on IHSA TV, every Friday, Saturday, watching some games, checking in, especially like places that I coach, like the HCC. I still keep up with them, the Mid-State Conference. I'm just a basketball junkie. So I'm watching games. It probably annoys my wife that there's always a high school or college game on. Have really seen a lot of games and kept up with a lot of the teams this year.
Can anybody be? I posed this question on Twitter the other day, and I was kind of surprised at the response. But I said, "Can anybody beat Fit? Or will it be who will win the 4A championship?" And I said, "Fishers or anyone else." And Fishers got 62% of the votes, and there was probably 1,500 votes total. So it was a pretty good chunk of people, and I thought it'd be a little bit more close to 50-50 or even under that for Fishers. But I think there are a lot of good. I don't think, in my opinion, I think that last year was better than this year as a whole.
Yeah.
But I think there's some really good teams out there. And I think Fishers is even, I would question if they're even better than they were last year because they had such a good senior class. But in the same vein, like they won all their games without Jason Gardner pretty much. So,
that's a huge factor. Yeah. If Jason Gardner is healthy, obviously that changes some things because he's an incredible player. So if he's healthy, they're a definite favorite, and you got to give credit to their coaching staff and their team for, they're still undefeated without him. A lot of teams, if they lost a player like that, would their season would be changed. So a lot of credit, and maybe some of those kids, that helped them. Having to step up and play a little bit different role. But they're the obvious favorites. Hamilton Southeastern's playing really well. They've won 7 in a row. I'm keeping up with those kids, really rooting for them. They got something to say about it. Westfield took Fishers to overtime. I'm sure they're hungry for some revenge. Carmel, that whole sectional is just, crazy every single year. So yeah, I would still say Fishers is the favorite. I really like Crown Point. I think they have some talent. Love Coach Swan and what he's doing up there. We played them last year, and I was just super impressed with how they play. And Shaw is just he's just like a college player playing high school basketball. He's really, really good. So yeah, there's maybe some teams up north that have something to say about it. We'll see, but yeah, I'm excited. Mount Vernon, Luke Ertl, he's really playing well right now, and they're rolling at the right time. So I'm excited. This is like the first year in 15 years I get to just sit back and watch and see a lot of games and be more of a fan rather than having to sit there and prepare for Noblesville, and then hey, if you win you get to play Fishers, and then if you win you get to play Carmel on Saturday, something like that. That was always fun. Or when I was at Decatur Central, it was, hey, you get Pike tonight, and then you get to play Ben Davis the next night. So those were always fun as a coach trying to prepare for those. But yeah, it'll be exciting. But as high school basketball, anything can happen. You catch a team on the wrong night, you make some shots, they miss some free throws here and there, anything could happen. But yeah, if I was a betting man, I would say Fishers is probably the favorite.
And how will that Decatur Central team? I know that sectional is different. It's kind of wide open now. And
yeah, I always give Server, some crap because I'm like, hey, how come when I coached we had to go beat Ben Davis and and Pike every year? And as soon as I leave, they adjust the sectional. What's up with that? So no, I've talked to him a few times this year. He really likes his team. I think he really has some confidence going into sectional. That sectional is wide open. I would not be surprised if any team won that sectional. Like Center Grove could get rolling, Franklin Central could get rolling, at the right time. And I definitely think Decatur has the talent to do it. They have to go through Perry, then Franklin Central. So it's a tough road, but if you're Coach Server, you probably feel confident going into it, and they have a real chance to win that.
Yeah, I agree. Perry's been playing better. That won't be maybe as easy as we thought earlier in the year. They've really played better here lately. But that sectional, Mooresville came out of it last year, was kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
And, so I think any of the 6, and Mooresville I know is a little bit down this year, but definitely it's wide open there. And Center Grove is still a team I think that Coach Hahn's got a chance to win it there. But John, I've kept you longer than I even anticipated.
Oh, you're
good. I appreciate you doing this. Great catching up with you. And again,
absolutely enjoyed it.
Tell people where they can find the newsletter again.
Yeah, so if you go, it's just the Game Shots newsletter. So you can Google it, or if you go to any of my social media, you can find it on there on a link. Like I said, it's completely free. It's once a week. It drops every Wednesday morning. So actually one dropped this morning. And you can go check that out. I actually talk about the AI brackets and all those things. So you can get it on there. Like I said, completely free, applies for all coaches across the board, administrators, and hopefully provide some value to coaches.
Are you backed up on the parent stories, or are you do you have an index of those?
Man, to be honest, like there's a lot I can't post.
I bet.
I get emails sent to me, or text, people screenshot text messages, and I'm like, I can't even, this is a family show. I can't even post this. But I think a large part of it is just showing coaches like you're not alone. Hey, we're all getting crazy emails and crazy texts, and parents, on our case. So I think there's a little bit of just like that factor of trying to show coaches you're not alone. But yeah, no, we never run out of of stuff. Yeah, I have to sometimes like edit and make sure it's not too crazy, because some of the emails these coaches get are just wild. So not backed up on that by any means. And then when we run this tournament, when we get the seeded tournament, we'll post all the calls and the emails we get, that our committee gets, people complaining that we're ruining high school basketball and all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing this, John. It was a pleasure catching up with you. The time flew by, but appreciate you doing it. And you'll be followed by Doug Mitchell here. So you're the warm up act.
I have issue with him. He's the last team that he knocked me out as a senior. Doug Mitchell and North Central, Eric Gordon, and all those guys. So give him some crap from me. I always laugh and say, yeah, you might have to have the editor button ready for a Doug Mitchell conversation. But again, great coach, had some legendary teams at North Central, and I actually saw him. He popped in the gym when I was at Hamilton Southeastern a few years ago, and I was like, who's this guy? I'm like, oh, that's Doug Mitchell. I'm like, here, grab a whistle, let's go, coach. And I think he has family in the Hamilton Southeastern area. So yeah, that'll be a fun conversation.
Absolutely. And really enjoyed talking to you, John. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks, Kyle.
All right. Well, thanks to John Ashworth for joining me in the first segment of the Talkin Hoops show. And next up, we got Doug Mitchell, a former coach at North Central, who I coached for many, or I didn't coach him, but I covered him for many years at North Central. He retired, was it 2018, right, Doug? And
sure. Yeah, that's right, 2018.
After a long tenure at North Central, and obviously a lot of winning and in a lot of fun times there in North Central. But Doug, when you look back, it's been 8 years now. Does it seem like it's been 8 years to you since you got out of coaching?
Wow. Some days it seems like it's 5 minutes ago, and other days it seems like it's 50 years ago. So it just kind of depends. But it's been an interesting 7 or 8 years.
And I always enjoyed our talks after games. A lot of it was, it would delve into different areas of life and things like that. And I miss those talks and covering your teams, and really enjoyed the time that we got to spend together. But there's another area of your life now that you're getting into, and it's a cool thing. It's actually starting up this weekend. I'm going to pull it up here on the stage here, but the Hamilton County Huskers is a new team coming to your home area again, and I wanted to talk to you about that, and kind of give us a little insight into how you got. And I talked to you the other night about this and some of the players, but how did you get involved with this, and kind of tell us a little bit about what it is?
Well, we are the newest basketball team in the TBL, which is the basketball league. And we are going to be situated in Arcadia, Indiana, in my old high school. And how this came about was kind of an interesting adventure. There's a guy I'd worked with throughout the years with some fundraising, and he had dealt with the TBL before with David Magley. and he introduced me to David. David talked about trying to expand the league, and one thing led to another. And here we are right now in Arcadia at the Student Activity Center, getting ready to play the Lebanon Leprechauns on Saturday night. Sometimes I wake up and go, what happened? How did that, what happened? And, but it's going to be a lot of fun, man. I'm looking forward to it.
And this is it's a new team. Obviously you're plenty familiar with, you're from this area. And we talked the other night about, it's kind of a full circle deal for you. I mean, you grew up there, you played high school basketball there, and now you're coming back, with this team. What personally for you, what's that been like, and to see this starting to get off the ground here?
It's been, it warms my heart. Is what it does. For years and years and years, you teach and you try to help young people, and you coach and you're giving of yourself to try to help other people. And when I retired and those years kind of faded by, it was kind of like a little empty spot there I had, and couldn't quite figure that out why. And, you're not helping many people other than 3 other guys on your little golf match you have on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But, I missed that. I really did. So this is a chance to help these guys get where they're going. And the league, Kyle, is what it is we try to explain it. You have, of course, you got the NBA, and then you have your G League with the Boom, and then we're a notch below that. We're a step below that. So, if you will, is AA, AAA, single A, or AAA, single, AA, and single A, if you will, kind of concept. But we're the guys down here that are trying to get somewhere. The guys that are here in this program are guys like me when I came out of Butler University, and nobody came a calling, Kyle. The draft people didn't call. I didn't have any agents call. I didn't know what to do or where to go, but I always kind of thought I could still play. And these guys now get that question answered. The TBL there's 44 teams across the country and Canada. We'll play regionally. We have ourselves, Kokomo Bobcats, and Lebanon Leprechauns, and in our region, along with 2 teams will play out of Columbus, Ohio, one out of Toledo, one out of Waukegan, Illinois, and the other out of St. Louis. So that's our region. You win your region, then you go on and play for your national title there. So that's kind of what that, in a nutshell, what the TBL is. And everybody in the organizations, most everybody is trying to get to that next level, live out that dream. Except for me, I'm just trying to help people do it. I already lived out a bunch of good dreams.
And some of the players, Doug, people will be familiar with, Grant Weatherford played at Hamilton Heights, of course, played at IUPUI. And I know this is, from talking to him the other night, he's really looking forward to this opportunity. Who are some of the other players? I know you have some players who have a lot of experience in this league as well. But who are some of the players, I guess, people might recognize out there?
Well, it's kind of interesting, the full circle thing. Like you say, Grant Weatherford, we're excited to have Grant. Grant is such a glue guy. He's a guy that never stops talking when he's on the floor. He's that leader. He's that dive on the floor. He's going to defend his guy. Grant may score 7 points, but I bet you his guy only scores 4. Mm-hmm. He's that kind of guy. Or he may score 30, and his guy might score 4. And we're real excited to have him, hometown hero. And then you go Jalen Manette, and when he walked in the door the first tryout, I tried to kick him back out the door because Jalen, I believe in 2017, maybe 16 or 17, and a regional hung about 47 or 48 points on us and knocked us out of the state tournament, which we believed we had a state championship caliber team. So he's on the team. So if you can't beat him, join him, huh? So we got Jalen there. Larry Johnson, 6'9" guy, played out of Hamilton Southeastern. The irony of that situation is my daughter, Peyton, who's now our ticket manager, was the manager on that team that Larry played on Hamilton Southeastern. and the team that, as my daughters affectionately call Gary Harris, Dream Crusher, ended the game on us, and she was the manager on that team, and they became good friends then, and here we are again. And so, guys like that, it's really great to have back around. Drake Moore played at Mooresville, IU, Kokomo. This guy, guys like this, I think are made for this league. I think he's a guy that just kept getting better and better and better. And now he's pretty good. I mean, I think he's I'm really anxious to see where this ends up for him. And then you have a couple guys that have been in the league for a while. Our poster guy is Trayvon Bentley. And Trayvon played at Lebanon last year and played down at Medora a few years ago. Trayvon's been in the league 6 or 7 years. He knows the how it works, and he's a guy, a good sounding board for all of our guys. As is Davion Johnson, who has also been in the league like that. So, I love this roster we put together, Kyle. But what I like more than anything else is their high character. I mean, these guys are just good guys, and we've had a couple exhibition games and nothing but positive feedback on how they interact with the fans and the kids, and just how much fun they are to watch based on their demeanor, if nothing else. But they're fun to watch from a basketball player standpoint too.
Yeah, I looked up that game. It was 94-82, Terre Haute South in the.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks. Yeah.
For posterity's sake, there. In the regional, yeah, but that was 26.
How many he had? Did he have 48 or something? He had 40 something.
I've got to look up my story. I think I remember him having 40 something. But yeah, he could go get some buckets. That's for sure.
Yes, he could.
And then yeah, it was. But wanted to too. I know this is from talking to Grant a couple nights ago, and the rest of the guys. This is a cool kind of opportunity for them, but also. They're looking forward to really kind of building a fan base, a community that comes out to watch this team. And, Grant obviously knows a lot of people in that area, as do you. But, what do you think people can expect coming out to watch you guys play?
I don't coach anymore, Kyle, so I don't know. You have to ask the coach.
Well, explain that too, because I should have mentioned that up front. You're not coaching; you're the GM. And that explain who is coaching for you guys and your connection to the coach.
That's correct. I'm the team managing owner of the Huskers, and our head coach is a young man by the name of Mateo Rivera, who affectionately we used to call Cheese all the time on the court. I've known Mateo since he's been an infant, a toddler, and because his brother Devontae Smith Rivera played on the team as well. But he's one of the greatest basketball minds I've ever been around. I mean, he just always intrigued me he was one of those guys, a few guys that I've ever been around and seen on the court that he sees the game like I do. As in when I'm watching game film and I have a controller in my hand and I can back it up and go in slow motion. That's how he sees the game as he's playing it. I mean, you can't speed him up. You never could. And he just saw things 2 or 3 steps ahead. And I'm anxious for his opportunity here to be able to show what he can do. And that's kind of what the league is. This is not this guy, I think this guy, young man, can coach. And this is a great opportunity for him.
Yeah, and it'll be fun to see what he does with. Obviously, he's been around basketball basically since he could walk. And his younger brother too, Poppy, was the same way. I remember watching him. He was probably 2-3 years old. When he was putting up shots at every time out at the North Central gym. So
never saw him without a basketball under their arm ever.
Yeah,
when they walk in that gym.
Yeah, and of course Devontae, a great player on that 2010 championship team, and he went on to play at Georgetown, of course. Doug, you look back, 428 wins. You had 4 Mr. Basketballs, Jason Gardner, AJ Ratliff, Eric Gordon and Chris Wilkes, who played with Mateo on that 2016-17 team, or and even before that. So you obviously had some great teams, 2 state champions. Man, it was quite a run, and I know you had some great people around you too over those years, great assistant coaches, along the way as well. But when you think back to your tenure at North Central, what do you remember most fondly?
Oh, wow.
I'll put this picture up here too.
There you go, right there, man. You're going to make me cry. That family, and that's what's so cool about this whole thing right now. I mean, I was a butler, and I for 6 years, full-time assistant, and I quit before I was going to get fired because I just became a bad assistant coach. I think because I didn't like the road, I didn't like being away from my family. We had our 3rd daughter, Morgan, who's going to be our game day operator, and she was about 3 years old, and she was. I called up, the old coin phones. There was no cell phones back in that day. She's about 3 and called up. And she answered the phone. She said, "Daddy, when are you coming over to visit?" And she didn't know I lived there. I mean, she really thought that I just stopped in to visit from time to time. That was the end of my my mental tie to that. I had to get out of there. So I came to a place that we thought we could compete for state championships. And that was North Central. And we raised our family in that gym. I mean, where do you want to go for your birthday party, kids? Just go to the gym, and that's just what we did. And now I think that's the happiest our family collectively, as I think back, has been. Some of the happiest times. And now we're all back there together again. Debbie's back kind of running the show, my wife, and Taylor, our oldest, is our apparel director. I just make these names up as I go. I'm kind of new at this. And like I said, Morgan, our middle daughter, is our game day director, and Peyton is our ticket manager, and her man, Tyler, is our social media guy. So it's just kind of a family kind of deal. We've got a cheer coach, performance team coach. Because that's what they like to do in the league. And one of those, the way I met this young lady, Olivia Aguirre, was at the hospital. My mother had infusions for kidneys about 3.5 years there at the end of her life. And it was 4 hours at a time, 2 times a week. Well, you get to know, the staff pretty well. And so I remembered when this performance team opportunity came up, I went back to Olivia because I remembered when I first saw my mom, she tried out for the Pacemates. And the next year she tried out for the hip hop team with the Pacemates, made that. And, oh man, and made that team, became an assistant coach there, and then became their director of entertainment there. So for their game entertainment. And she's going to work with us. I mean, that's a family. Here we go. And, it just keeps coming back to that. I don't want to forget anybody that's involved in it, but, that's the thing I remember the most. And the other thing is inside, in the back cave, as we used to call it, you come back that padded door at North Central, mm-hmm. Open door that most people didn't know was there. That office, when we shut that door and the coach is there. I mean, Walt Morris was with me for 20 years. Basil Smother was with me for 17 years. And other guys like Sam DeVoe. And, there's just countless numbers. Players that I'd had that coached with us. And, just living life, just going through life. We had families during that 25-year stint, grandkids, losses, the friendships that were formed there. And, and what you realize about the people you're working with, the great minds and the great people that you work with. And I think these guys are going to see that. Mateo is just a great basketball mind. We got a young man by the name of Landon Bear, who's an assistant coach over at Anderson University. He's helping us out. he's a young guy, 22, 23 years old. I would never be surprised if I turned on the TV here a few years down the road and saw him on an NBA sideline somewhere. I mean, he is that good. He is that tactical. He's that organized. He's that new world modern, being out of the game 8 years, Kyle, I go back and look and go, they just moved on without me, didn't they? They just knew stuff and everything. And I could, but he's on top of it. And Tyree Johnson, another one of my players, he's going to be an assistant coach. Tyree is one of the greatest defenders I have ever coached. My tag for him was he could guard anybody in the country. And I really believe he could. And, Tyler Smith is a guy that's going to help us out. He's head coach down the South Side. And, these guys, I just love to see how this thing is going. This time I get to sit back and watch, and just watch them form these bonds and whatnot. So.
Well, that's I can't wait to see what it looks like, and it's fun to see. I go out and I'll see, guys like Tyrone Johnson, who he just goes out to games now and he brings his son with him.
How about that?
Yeah, it's funny how life can it's just it happens so fast, But a lot of the guys that I covered have their own kids that are coming up now, so I guess that means I'm getting old as well. But
that's all it means, man. We're just getting old. We're getting up there. I go and watch those guys. David Logan, a former player, has a son playing, and Tyrone has a son playing. They play over here at Hamilton Southeastern. It's not far from my home, and I've been over there watching them a couple times, and it's just like, I've changed a little bit, Kyle. Certain things bring me to tears now, and that was one of them. I mean, just to see that, know what those guys meant to me and how they were, and now they're kids. The crazy thing about it, I can walk in a gym 9 times out of 10 if I'm watching a kid play, and just watch the people on the floor and watch them run, and I can tell who it is.
Yeah,
it's crazy, how they do that. That's I don't know. It's just part of the deal.
You've had a chance to see, I'm sure, Jason Gardner Jr. play. You coached his father, obviously, who played at it was Mr. Basketball at North Central. Not to, I always feel like it's unfair to compare players who were great to but Jason Gardner Jr., a pretty great player in his own right. Do you see some similarities there with the way the two of them play?
Yes, I do. I really do. Because if you go back and you say, what was Jason Gardner? Was he a point guard? Yeah. Was he a 2 guard? Well, he averaged 22, 23 points a game at Arizona, and they do have his jersey hanging in the rafters. 1 of 5, I believe. And, you go, well, what position is he? And, finally you just say, it doesn't matter. Just put him on the floor. And Lil J is the same way, I think. Is he point? Is he 2? I don't know, and I really don't care. All I know is when I look up at the end of the game, he's got about 23 points and, 4 or 5 assists and 7 or 8 rebounds and a couple steals, and he does it night in, night out. That's the similarity I see. And the athletic ability. Sorry, Jason, but Lil J might have just passed me that man. Because, boy, is he his base he's got. He's a strong young man.
Boy, he's really. I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, he can get back here to play in the sectional, and I think he will. It's just been unfortunately, that broken hand has kind of kept him out here, and he hasn't had to hasn't had the opportunity to have the junior season he could have, unfortunately. Right. But looking forward to see him getting back out there and playing next week in the sectional. Doug, do you miss the coaching side? I know those.
No. Fair enough. You can continue your question if you want.
But I always enjoyed watching the battles you had with Lawrence North, and obviously those were you often played them even 3 times a year, a lot of times. But those Marion County tournament games. I remember you guys won those. Those were hard to win. I mean, the 16-team tournament, those were battles. And then obviously getting the sectional, you're playing a lot of the same teams. But yeah, I guess it's maybe it's fun to look back on, but you're good with being out of it now.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I have no regrets whatsoever. I mean, I enjoyed it, but in the end, it was just the angst and anxiety of it all I was done with. Because if you have empathy at all, I think, and you're a coach and you deal with that many people over and over and over again, you're wearing their problems as well as yours, as well as yours. And then the coaching aspect of it is I tell these young guys, because we just started this Hamilton County Huskers endeavor October the 30th, less than 4 months ago. And there's a lot of pieces flying around we're trying to get to. And I tell them, the young guys, look, actual coaching, I don't know, maybe 20% of what you do, 10%, the rest of it's getting ready to coach, putting yourself in a position to coach and coach the right way. But, missing it every now and then, Kyle, I walk in a gym and, it'd be packed and, you'd smell the popcorn and the cheerleaders going, the band's going. And, it's like, yeah, man, I got, about once or twice this winter, I've gotten the itch, but the rest of it, you talk to coaches and, I got a phone call from the parent or it was in the paper or that ended up on, no, I don't miss that. But what I did miss, the void that, like I said, that I didn't realize was helping people, communicating with them and trying to see if I can help them get a good start in their life. And so that's a little bit, I do miss that.
Yeah, it's more. I always tell people, like, to me in my job, my season goes on win or lose, regardless of what happens in the game. So that's the fun part for me is my season never really ends. That's also the bad part, I guess. But
yeah, you can have that one. I like the end of the season when it came one way or the other.
Right. Yeah, but there's no real ending and then you start with the next season. So,
right.
But I enjoyed this. Doug, is there anything else you want to say about your team? I know that. So the first game Saturday, you play back to back, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and again, how long does the season last? And I guess what else do you want to say about it?
Yeah, we start our season February the 28th. Like you said, we're at home at the Student Activity Center in Arcadia, Indiana. It's 420 West North Street. You can buy your tickets at the door. You can get them at mvpresults.com/HCH. And or you can get them at the door. Then we play Sunday again at the same place at the SAC Student Activity Center there in Arcadia, but we play at 4:30 on Sunday. And Saturday is against the Lebanon Leprechauns, and Sunday is with the Kokomo Bobcats. And I want it to be a start of a rivalry, man. Let's go. Here we are again. Let's go, Jack. Why don't you go coach the Kokomo Bobcats? Maybe I'll come out of retirement. And so those are two. And then the next weekend, March the 7th, we have another home game at 7 p.m. at the SAC. I think what you're going to see is some good entertainment, some good basketball, and some good people. Now, what you see our first few games, hang in there with us, people, because like I said, we're coming through the door a little bit late, and hope the uniforms arrive on time. I hope basketballs get here, and hope the cameras work here when we test them out this afternoon. So but it's a thing where that's okay if it doesn't. Be transparent with the people, but I think it's going to be okay for where we're at right now. And what I have seen and what I have gathered for me personally, and I think for the Hamilton County community, and not just Hamilton County, but Southern Tipton County, we hope they get involved too, is people coming together again. I mean, what did a high school basketball mean anyway? When you're a kid, what do you do? You're in the 6th grade, you go put your clothes on, we're on the game, okay, let's go to the game. You walk in the door, you see your buddies, and then your parents are over there and they see the neighbors and maybe they see somebody they haven't seen for a while. Well, that's what this whole thing has become. I mean, I walked by the other day at the exhibition game and saw one of my former students, and he said, "Hey, Coach Mitchell, how you doing?" He said, I remember having you in business class, and you were teaching us how to write checks." And a young man by the name of Brian looked at it and said, "I don't need to learn how to write a check." And you told him, "Well, Brian, you may need to write a check someday or know how to write a check because you may own a business and you may have to write checks or read the checks that people give to you." And he stated something to the fact that, "Oh, if I ever have a business, nobody would come there anyway." And Chris looked at me, my former student, said, "He owns some businesses now, and a couple, and he's done very, very well for himself." And I looked up online, and he'd sent in a sponsorship the other day. And that's not what we were looking for. But just what I mean is just coming around and seeing people again. And my sister came. She hadn't been out up there for a long time. I bet she saw 6 or 7 people that she reunited with and talked about it for days. That's the cool part, Kyle. I mean, I know, I'm a grandpa now. I have a grandpa mentality, and but those things warm my heart. That's what gets me going now, are things like that. And to see my granddaughters in their little Husker uniforms. My grandson is going to be Hank the Husker, and as you can see, he's a pretty well built guy there on that logo. And my grandson, he's about right there with him, I think. So
he is. He's a built guy. That's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Guys getting an opportunity to go on. We've had guys lead this league, and a couple been in the NBA. There's been several in the G League. There's been several overseas. And I'll leave you with this. Here's when I decided to do this. And because it was a tough one, it's like I control pretty much everything I do on that back porch in the summertime. And, but now here you got to, you're doing some new things, new adventures. But the day I realized I thought I was going to do it was like, I asked myself, who would do this? Who would play in this league? No salaries comparative to G League or NBA, obviously. Some guys play for no salary and for just the chance. And I thought, who in their right mind would do that? I thought, oh, wait a minute. Doug Mitchell would have back in 1979 when he came out of Butler and nobody else called. What was I doing? I was going to the boys club paying to get in the league. And nobody was seeing what I was doing. So it just didn't matter. So one night we were out and we played in I don't know what league game somewhere. And there was a guy there I'd seen before. Somebody said, "Hey, there's Pat." And I said, "Who's Pat?" I said, "He's Pat Ballou. He's the last guy that got cut by the Pacers." I never did check in that, but that's what I'd heard. Well, it upset me because I was watching him warm up and I thought, no, they didn't call me and they called you. And no, that was my cocky little 24-year-old something. He's a pretty good player. But I hung 50 on him that night, Kyle. And the moral to the story is, so what? Nobody saw that. That did nothing to further my career. It was fun. But, there was no video with it. There was no official stats. But if you do that in this league, there's a guy named, I believe his name is Eugene German, went to Northern Illinois a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
And good score. Nobody called. Eugene gets he gets a plane ticket, goes out to San Diego and goes to the tryout, and ends up out there with the guy I'm partnering with now. And he hangs 60 on some guy and a couple of teams. So they're going, wait a minute, he's pretty good. So they make a couple phone calls and they think he may be better than this league. So they call Cliff Livingston, who was coaching the Kokomo Bobcats at the time. Cliff makes a few phone calls, from my understanding. Next thing you know, this guy's got a tryout, and he is in the Denver Nuggets Summer League. Okay, doesn't work out, but he did. Now he's overseas doing extremely well financially. And like I said, we've had David Logan's one of our former players. Skip Mills, one of our former players. Both those guys played overseas and had very, very good careers. And they are on our consultation board, if you will. Mm-hmm. Sam DeVoe is coached over there. He was one of our assistants. He was a head coach in Germany for 4 years. in the pro leagues. So, and he ran every level of the league. He's on our board. And so, that's the whole deal. When I didn't get a chance, I didn't get a call. I didn't have Sam to go to. I didn't have, David Logan to go to, say, what's it like? How do I do it? How do I get started? I didn't have that. And a lot of times, honestly, that's all people need.
Mm-hmm.
Help me. How can I get there? Well, here we are again, and we're doing this as a family affair, man. So come on out and see the Hamilton County Huskers, dude. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a family atmosphere, a warm atmosphere. And you know me, Kyle, sooner or later when we get all situated in, I think we got a team that's going to compete. And compete like that our teams have in the past. So we're looking forward to it.
Well, if I see you up there waving that towel, I know the press is on. So,
you know what? If I'm waving the towel this time, it means somebody turned on the camera, it's not working, or the clock's broke, or somebody.
Right. Different responsibilities. So.
Yeah, definitely was. But even those, fulfilling those now, strangely enough, that was a little dopamine rush. That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
You have a problem. Oh, no, it's a huge problem. Oh, well, wait a minute. Let me call this person. Let me call that. Oh, okay, let's take care of this. Oh, look, it worked. I'll be 70 years old in September. It don't take much to get me excited anymore.
Hey, look, you figured your camera out this morning.
Hey, how about that?
Look at that. But again, the TBL, it's the Hamilton County Huskers. They get underway starting on Saturday. And they play through June, so you have chances to come out and see them play. But looking forward to it, Doug. Thanks for. There's the Huskers.
Go Huskers!
I'm gonna try that again, Doug.
There we go. Go Huskers! Why not, Kyle?
That's right. Good luck with everything. We could do this a segment with you. I think you got a lot of stories. I know you have a ton of stories because I've heard a lot of them. So
I'd love to do that. I'd love to get in that your world a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Doug.
Thank you, Kyle. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Well, thanks again to John Ashworth and Doug Mitchell for joining me here on Talkin Hoops. We went a little bit long with this one, but good stuff from both of those guys. Wanted to, dive into some different stuff, obviously, with both of them. Doug is one of those, basketball guy, covered a lot of his teams over the years. And I always, didn't always, there were definitely times where he would get into me a little bit, but I appreciate that. Like, you kind of know where you stand with him. And then we would sit there and talk for an hour about, like I said, other stuff beyond basketball, and spent a lot of time in that kind of tucked away office there at North Central behind the padded wall there on one end of the court, and really enjoyed covering his teams up until 2018 when he retired. But they had a great run there at North Central with, obviously, as we talked about, some great players. But cool team they're getting started there in Hamilton County. That of course gets started this weekend. Like I said, I wanted to also touch on some sectional games that are of note starting next week. We're going to do a little bit more here on video throughout the week with the sectional starting. But, I wrote a story that ran on Thursday morning about some of the top sectional games. And it is still a little weird to me that the 4A, because of the change that the IHSA made to the 4 classes and how it's aligned, there are fewer 4A games now than there used to be in that during the week, at least. So, but there are 2 really dynamite games at Noblesville, as there always is, and there would have been no matter what the draw was. But it turned out with Westfield and HSE, they will play in the second game on Tuesday night. That, I think, is the best game of the week, at least for the first round games. That's Westfield and HSE. HSE's won 7 in a row. Westfield's been playing better of late. The first time they played each other, Westfield just 6 for 24 from the 3-point line. And HSE has gotten a lot of production from different areas, including Varshawn Clark, who the sophomore, has really kind of come on here lately. But Landon Oswald and Luke Weimer, 2 seniors that have really played well here of late. Weimer had 24 in that first game against Westfield, so that would be something to keep an eye on. Up north, I think the one of the better games is sectional 2 at Chesterton. Chesterton and Portage, both 18-4. Chesterton won that game by 10 early in the season. Or actually, that was just a couple weeks ago. Logan Picorni, Bradley Basila, 2 really good players for Chesterton. Portage has a lot of guys. They'll be almost completely coming back next year, too, so they could be even better next year. The other game at Noblesville, the Millers hosting, and they will play Zionsville. Seems like every year these teams play each other. Feels like that anyway in the sectional. Zionsville, really good season. They've kind of been a little bit up and down here of late, but 13-10 coming in. Noblesville without Justin Curry. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL. They are 12-10 on the season. Still dangerous, though, with Barron Walker, Max Flanagan. Zionsville, Rylan Gore can really light it up from 3. And Camden Moore, their top player, going to Notre Dame to play baseball, but only a junior. Also in a game up north, South Bend Riley and the Port, that field at Mishawaka, really good. So if you're looking to get out of the area and go watch a game up that way, that will be a good one. That's at 7:30 on Wednesday, actually. And the Chesterton game's Tuesday. So, but yeah, there's some games on Wednesday too. Blackhawk Christian Angola, that's a 3A sectional 21 up at DeKalb. That'll be a good one on Tuesday night. Jasper Gibson Southern is on Tuesday. That's sectional 31, a 3A game. Also Cordon Central Charlestown, but Silver Creek's also in that sectional. So, the winner of this will probably end up playing Silver Creek, you would think, but that'll be a tough assignment. Silver Creek's been an absolute roll of late and handled both these teams pretty easily, even though these are good teams. New Pal Roncalli, that'll be one to watch Wednesday night at Greenwood. That will be a 7:30 game. Those two teams played each other as a 3-point game. Luke Feldman made a 3 with about 2 seconds left to win that game after New Pal had rallied from a 13-point deficit. So Roncalli a chance to maybe break through this year, but New Pal will be a challenge for them, even though they lost all those players from last year. Still a very good team. Will Davison is a sophomore averaging 18 points a game, and Evan Dare about 14 points. So they can still score. I think will make it difficult for Roncalli's team in that game. Penn and Michigan City also at Mishawaka. That's a Wednesday night game. Caleb Kuhlman for a Penn, a really nice player, sophomore for that team. Anderson and Pendleton Heights in sectional 9 at Greenfield Central. That will be a tough assignment. Pendleton Heights lost last night to Centerville, a really strong 2A team. That surprised me a little bit. I thought Pendleton Heights would win that one. Anderson, of course, has been really good these last few years. Don Bowling is sophomore, almost 20 points a game. So that will be a challenge. LaPel and Frankton, that'll be a great game at Elwood. Those two rival schools, obviously in the same school district. That will be a great matchup. Avon and Brownsburg in Section 11 at Plainfield. This is the same route Brownsburg took last year, having to play this playing game. And also they beat Avon last year in this game. Avon was a better overall team last year, still a dangerous team this year. Jay County and Yorktown up in at Newcastle, or over at Newcastle, sectional 24. That Yorktown team has been really rolling here of late. Cathedral and Shortridge, it'll kind of depend if Shortridge gets Elijah Wilson back. He's supposed to play against Avon. We'll see. He injured his ankle against University a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, that was a really disappointing, unfortunate thing that happened there. Shortridge kind of a dangerous sleeper team if they can get him healthy. He averages 23 points a game. TJ Davis, also a really good player. Got to think Cathedral's the favorite in this sectional. They are on the opposite side of Addicts, which Addicts has been a little bit up and down, but I think starting to play their best basketball here of late. So if Cathedral can get through this one, then this one's at Broad Ripple on Tuesday night. And then I also had Alexander and Blackford. That's 2A sectional 40 at Eastbrook. Marion Leggett for Blackford, 26.6 points a game. Again, one of the top sophomores in the state. Alexandria, they are a team that Blackford beat them by 8 back in mid-December, but that was when Blackford was part of a 13-0 run. They're 16-6 now, so they've stumbled here a little bit of late. That'll be a good one as well. And then there's some other games, I think, too. Greencastle and Park Heritage in sectional 41 at Greencastle should be a good game. Brebeuf and Tri-West at Frankfort, Morristown and Tri. Henryville, West Washington, Ritter and Riverside. Riverside's 21-1. That will be at Ritter, Linton, Stockton, Eastern Green, and Lagodi, Bar Reeve. Some other games to watch during the week, and then we'll see what it looks like going into the sectional semifinals. You'll have Plainfield and Pike, among others, that are already set in stone. So, again, appreciate John and Doug coming on here with me. And this went a little longer than I expected to, but thanks again. We'll talk to you next time.